Well, of course, they are bad at the cover up. Donald Trump doesn't have to worry about how well a cover up of the Epstein files is executed by his Justice Department, because the United States Supreme Court has made Donald Trump the very first president in history to have immunity from criminal prosecution for anything he does as president of the United States. Because the Supreme Court knew that presidential immunity did not exist in the Constitution when Richard Nixon was president, Republican Richard Nixon knew that he could face criminal prosecution for his cover-up of the Watergate burglary and other crimes that he committed while he was president. And that's why he got a pardon from President Gerald Ford after his vice president, Gerald Ford, became president, after Richard Nixon resigned from the presidency. Richard Nixon knew he needed that pardon. Everyone working for Donald Trump knows that they do not have the same immunity that the Supreme Court gave to Donald Trump, and everyone working for Donald Trump should know that Richard Nixon's White House chief of staff, his White House counsel, his attorney general, and dozens of other people working for Richard Nixon were convicted of crimes and sent to prison. And so, if you are Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, and if you are now managing a cover-up of the Epstein files in your position as the Trump deputy attorney general, you know that only Donald Trump can grant you immunity from prosecution for anything you do as Deputy Attorney General. Donald Trump can do that by issuing a blanket pardon to everyone working for him that would, in effect, give them the same immunity Donald Trump already knows that he has. And so Donald Trump's Attorney General and Donald Trump's Deputy Attorney General are blissfully violating federal law tonight, as they have been every night since Friday, by refusing to release all of the Epstein files. They know Donald Trump can pardon them for any federal crime they might commit. When asked about the Epstein files today, Donald Trump said, "They are asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. I thought that was finished." Those were his exact words. If Donald Trump really thought that was finished, that would be more public evidence of Donald Trump's neurological decline. But it seems that it was really just a standard Trump lie, just like the other lie Donald Trump told about Jeffrey Epstein today. Donald Trump said, quote, "Everybody was friendly with this guy." That is a lie. Most rich people in New York had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein back when Donald Trump was publicly calling Jeffrey Epstein a terrific guy.
Now, my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, "I'm sorry, we have to go." And we left. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
Really?
So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going, because he's gross.
He lived next door to Jeffrey Epstein, would have nothing to do with him. Donald Trump's incompetent and clownish Secretary of Commerce lived next door to Jeffrey Epstein, and he refused to have anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein. So no, everybody was not friendly with that guy. Donald Trump was very friendly with that guy. And at the height of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse of children and sex trafficking, Donald Trump said in 2002, "I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." The younger side. How many 48-year-old men do you know who invite 14-year-old girls to their parties? Jeffrey Epstein did that, and so did the 48-year-old Donald Trump. The New York Times reports that Donald Trump held parties at his home in Florida where he invited 14-year-old girls. Tina Davis, who worked with Ford models in the mid-1990s, said in an interview that her Ford booker instructed her to get dressed up and attend a Mar-a-Lago party in late 1994. Just 14 and new to Miami, she was told to dress sexy, according to her mother, Sandra Coleman, who had accompanied her to Florida. 8 or 9 other models came along on the bus. All the girls were really young, Ms. Coleman recalled in an interview. Some of them could have been in training bras. When they arrived at Mar-a-Lago, Ms. Coleman said her daughter was promptly handed a glass of champagne. She took it away, but waiters kept offering more. Each time one of the middle-aged men at the party approached her daughter, Ms. Coleman would walk over and introduce herself as Ms. Davis's mother. During a trip to the bathroom, they ran into Mr. Trump's new wife, whom they had met earlier. Marla Maples clasped her hands. Ms. Coleman recalled and looked her in the eye. "Whatever you do, do not let her around any of these men, and especially my husband," she told Ms. Coleman. "Protect her." 14 years old, invited to Donald Trump's home, handed champagne repeatedly. Unlike her former husband, Donald Trump, Marla Maples, Donald Trump's second wife, responded to New York Times inquiries about that story. The New York Times reports Ms. Maples denied making the comment. "I would always protect young women in any way I could," she said, "but I am sure I didn't specifically say that about my daughter's father." Donald Trump's second wife, Marla Maples, received a substantial financial settlement in her divorce from Donald Trump. The Times reports Mr. Epstein was a frequent guest at Mar-a-Lago parties. A woman who said Mr. Epstein trafficked her in the late 1990s and early 2000s recalled attending at least a half a dozen of the parties beginning when she was 17. She told the New York Times that the invitations she received when she was 17 were, quote, "to be Donald Trump's guest at Mar-a-Lago." According to one invitation she shared with the Times, the parties were open bar and no one checked IDs. She said Mr. Trump was always all over them, she recalled. A 20-year-old model who attended a Trump party at Mar-a-Lago told the New York Times, "I had a glass of champagne and I immediately felt not well," Ms. Brock recalled, adding, "I thought my drink had been spiked." According to the New York Times reporting, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein attended parties at each other's homes. The Times reports one of the women, who has never before spoken publicly about the experience, told the Times that Mr. Epstein had coerced her into attending 4 parties at Mr. Epstein's home. Mr. Trump attended all 4, the woman said. At 2 of them, she said, Mr. Epstein directed her to have sex with other male guests. In an email among those released by Congress in November, Mr. Epstein boasted that he gave Mr. Trump a 20-year-old woman whom Mr. Epstein dated in the 1990s. In a 2010 deposition, Mr. Epstein was asked if he had ever socialized with Mr. Trump with girls under 18, and he did more than 3 dozen times during the deposition. Mr. Epstein invoked his constitutional right not to answer. At one of those parties, here's how Jeffrey Epstein introduced himself. Quote, "I'm Jeffrey. I'm Don's best friend." That's how Jeffrey Epstein introduced himself to a beauty pageant contestant at one of Donald Trump's hotels. That contestant, Beatrice Kuhl, told the New York Times, quote, "One of Mr. Trump's employees asked her to meet privately with him in a suite upstairs. Almost as soon as she arrived," Ms. Kuhl said, "Mr. Trump began groping her, kissing her, and trying to lift her dress. I yelled, I screamed, I pushed him," she said. "He didn't want to give up." She said she was withholding some details of what happened because she had been subject to anonymous threats. Ms. Kuhl also provided the Times with pictures of documents corroborating her participation in the pageant and of herself with Mr. Trump. So that is a case of sexual assault by Donald Trump that has not previously been reported, that was reported there by the New York Times and not denied by Donald Trump when given an opportunity by the New York Times. Donald Trump has not been charged with anything connected with Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. Marina Lacerda spoke publicly for the first time outside of the Capitol on September 3rd.
My name is Marina Lacerda. I was minor victim 1 in federal indictment of Jeffrey Epstein in New York in 2019. I was one of dozens of girls that I personally know who were forced into Jeffrey's mansion on 9 East 71 Street in New York City when we were just kids. Today is the first time that I ever speak publicly about what happened to me.
The 2019 indictment of Jeffrey Epstein says this about minor victim 1, who we now know was Marina Lacerda. In or about 2002, minor victim 1 was recruited to engage in sex acts with Epstein and was repeatedly sexually abused by Epstein at the New York residence over a period of years. Epstein also encouraged and enticed minor victim 1 to recruit other girls to engage in paid sex acts, which she did. Epstein asked minor victim 1 how old she was, and minor victim 1 answered truthfully. She was 14 years old. Jenna Lisa Jones was also 14 years old.
I was only 14 years old when my friend brought me over to Jeffrey Epstein's house in Palm Beach in 2003. I had a terrible home life, but I was such an innocent kid then. I always did my best in school, and I had such a positive outlook on life. Until that day that I met Jeffrey, I have never been more scared in my life than I was that first time that he hurt me. I remember crying the entire way home, thinking about how I couldn't ever tell anyone about what actually happened in that house. This guy was so rich and had so many pictures with so many famous people, and no one would have ever believed me if I told them.
Congressman Ro Khanna believed her. Congressman Thomas Massie believed her, and the other survivors of Jeffrey Epstein who came to Washington. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene believed her and the other survivors. And together, those members of Congress are able to pass a law which ultimately passed in the House of Representatives almost unanimously, then passed the Senate unanimously, which requires the Trump Justice Department to release all of the Epstein files. The 14-year-old girls who were sure no one would believe them were finally heard this year, and their voices have changed the course of history. Joining us now, Jenna Lisa Jones and Marina Lacerda. They both met Jeffrey Epstein when they were 14 years old. Jenna Lisa, thank you very much for joining us once again. Please tell us how you're feeling, what you're thinking after a weekend after the first release of this tiny amount of the Epstein files.
I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed, a lot of emotions. I've been going through these files like every other person out there right now. Even had to wait to get onto the website to start looking at them. But as going through them, seeing how they haven't been redacted properly for the survivors, and just reading them is really heartbreaking to see that they didn't do their job properly. And it just is a reminder of what we've been dealing with for so long. And it's just really heartbreaking over and over again.
Marina, what are you feeling tonight? What have you been thinking as you've had the weekend with the Epstein files first release?
Well, I think all of us survivors are feeling very frustrated that the DOJ did not do their job correctly. I mean, they had one job here. It was to redact the victim's name. And it seems like they're protecting the wrong people here.
As we go forward, Jenna Lisa, let me ask both of you, but start with Jenna Lisa. What are you hoping happens next?
Well, I hope that they get held accountable for not doing the full release of these files, however that may look. I mean, they had the job to release all of them. They should be held accountable for not doing the redactions properly. It's just very frustrating that we even are sitting here having to see, like, what are we going to do next? They should have done their job properly. They knew that this was coming. This is just a joke. It's once again, a slap in the face to all of us.
Marina, I'm thinking about, go ahead, Marina, please.
I feel the same way. This has become a circus act. It is something that the whole world is waiting for at this point. And here we are again, protecting the wealthy elite men. It is ridiculous at this point, and we are tired of it, but we will not stop fighting for this.
Jenna Lisa, the redactions were not complete. So there are some survivors whose names have appeared now for the first time publicly, who didn't want their names. They hadn't made the decision that you'd made, the difficult decision to go public. And the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, on television yesterday said that if they had released names of victims and survivors that had not been released before, or released them at all, that would be a crime. He said that would be the true crime. But he actually committed the true crime against some of the people whose names were released against their will.
Yeah, he definitely did. I found numerous girls that I was friends with that I didn't even know that were victims of Jeffrey Epstein's on my own. And I know for a fact that they would not want their names out there. And I think it's heartbreaking. I mean, I cried last night reading their names because I know how hard this is. And to not have a choice whether your name is released or not is just, it's a crime. And people need to be punished for it now.
So, Jenna Lisa, take us through that. You're reading the files, and was that one of the things that you thought might be possible, that you might actually discover that people involved, victims involved that you didn't know were involved?
Oh yeah, because Palm Beach, I mean, the high schools and all of us, it's like somehow everyone kind of knows everyone. And it was such a hush hush thing that your group of friends you thought it was only your group of friends, right? So seeing some of these girls' names that I had went to high school with, and later on, even once we had kids, it's just really horrific to see because it's just something we didn't know about each other. And now I know that about them. And I feel so sad because they didn't ask for this. And they're getting thrown into this circus act.
Marina, have you had any similar surprises in anything you've seen in the Epstein files?
I have not found anybody that I know. I have not searched either. I think I've been so deep in searching for what I've tried to come across that has to do with me. But I do have to agree with Jenna Lisa. There has been a lot of survivors named that I don't know them, but it is very sad to say that their names are out there. And even the survivors' names that are out there, we do not want our information out there. It is so, I mean, like Jenna Lisa said, it is another slap in our faces. We have asked for the DOJ to do a simple job. It is to redact our names. And it almost feels like they did this on purpose.
Yeah.
To talk about that, Marina, go ahead, expand on that a little bit. So you're reading it and you see this information that you know shouldn't be there. You are, in effect, complainers already about this Justice Department. You have brought your complaint forward over the months saying, we want the Epstein files released. You know they didn't want to release it. You know that they basically considered you their political opponents of the day who they somehow were trying to overwhelm. And then when they actually do release some material, they do it in a way that you're saying feels to you like they're actually trying to harm you and get back at you for what you've demanded.
You know, they can try, but this only makes us stronger. It's just like when they called us a hoax, it gave us more of a voice. It gave us a stronger voice. And this is why I say we will not stop fighting. And the DOJ or, whoever's working on this, because right now we are all confused. It is so many different people that they're blaming one person, another, Todd Blanche, the DOJ, right? We're looking at this as survivors like, can you guys do your job correctly? We were humans. We were children at one point. I know everybody looks at us as grown women, but we have to look at ourselves as 14, 15, 16-year-old. And we have to remind ourselves again that women in their 30s and their 40s as well get groomed and get sexually abused and raped. So we asked the DOJ to do their job. It was very simple. It is to redact our names and to bring these men to justice. We've had enough. It is 2025. Why are we even wasting our time and America's money on this? It's ridiculous.
Jenna Lisa, in terms of protecting people who have not come forward, who've not made the decision you've made, talk a little bit about what it's like to make that decision, to say, I'm going to go public into this battle over what Jeffrey Epstein did. I'm going to have my name be public. That's a very, very difficult decision to make. And when you make it, you obviously know that you are representing hundreds of girls who are not going to come forward to tell the story of what happened to them. And that's a confidentiality I think we can all respect. Whenever we hear from any of you, we have to understand that you are a representative of hundreds of other survivors who are out there who are hoping that you can do this for them.
Yeah, I mean, we're out here. There are many survivors that we are in contact that aren't out publicly, that are support behind the scenes for us, that also motivate us to keep fighting and striving to keep this going, to get the justice that we all deserve. I mean, just because someone doesn't put their face out there doesn't mean that they're not there. And that's why we speak so much harder and so much louder now as a collective, is because there is numbers. There's so many of us behind the scenes that haven't came forward, and we're protecting them, we're shielding them, and we're trying to shield them, and we're trying to get justice for all of them, all of us. But it just seems like every time we think we're in the right step in the right direction, the government goes and does something else and lets us down. And this should have been cut and dry once again, and it wasn't. And it's just a circle of abuse. And I think everyone also forgets that when we're going through this continuously, that this is an emotional and re-traumatizing all the time. And this is not just re-traumatizing of what happened to us. We're being re-traumatized by our government. And that speaks volumes, because we're supposed to be the most wonderful place. You know, this is the United States of America. We should be taking and protecting our children. And this seems like this is the hardest thing to do.
Jenna Lisa Jones and Marina Lacerda, you know, one of the standard things that I do here is thank guests for joining the program. I'm, of course, thankful for you for doing that, but I can't do it in the standard way. I have to let you know that I'm very, very sorry that this is the subject that we are meeting on, that this is the subject that has brought us into this public conversation together. I'm very sorry for what happened to you, and I'm sorry that you have to be here tonight to fight for what you're hoping you can achieve here. Thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you. And coming up, Attorney Bradley Edwards, who has represented hundreds of Epstein survivors, will join us with Congressman Ro Khanna, who is a co-author of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, the law that Donald Trump's Justice Department is willfully violating tonight. That's next. Our next guests, Attorney Brad Edwards and Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna, were both guests on this program on July 23rd of this year, when Brad Edwards suggested Congress could subpoena Jeffrey Epstein's estate for the Epstein birthday book that included a message from Donald Trump.
Congress could issue a subpoena to their attorneys at Patterson or at Troutman. Those are the two law firms. I know those attorneys. They would turn the book over immediately. Nobody would have to guess. There wouldn't need to be a lawsuit. There wouldn't have to wait to be discovery. You would immediately have the answers. You could flip to the page. Is there a letter? Is there not a letter? It's over.
That was a bombshell revelation by Bradley Edwards. I appreciate your having me on to hear that. It's important what he said, that we have to center the victims in this. And it's important to hear what he believes the victims want, which is the full, complete release of the Epstein files.
Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California. He is a member of the House Oversight Committee. Also with us is Attorney Bradley Edwards. He is a Florida attorney who has represented hundreds of Epstein victims. He is the author of Relentless Pursuit. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Congressman Khanna, it is your law that is being violated tonight. What can be done about that?
Well, first, it's an honor to be on with Bradley Edwards. Him being on your show really made this whole thing happen, because he introduced me to the survivors, and it was their courage, their coming to the steps of the Capitol, that led to the passage of the law. Here's what I find so discouraging and heartbreaking. The Justice Department has spent more time protecting the rich and powerful men who abuse the survivors than they have protected the survivor's identity. There's one case where they revealed the survivor's name, but they still are not revealing the FBI file that she has requested with the information about who abused her. And we know from one of the documents that was released, a new document in 2019, an email, that there were 10 co-conspirators. But they're not releasing the information about this. They're not releasing some simple things like the FBI witness interviews with the survivors, which would tell us which other men are involved. But Massie and I are going to continue the fight. The survivors are going to fight. We're going to see that justice is done.
Bradley Edwards, what else is in the Epstein files that you know they could release?
Well, currently they haven't released anything. I mean, literally nothing. The only thing they've done is placed a bunch of pretty random documents from court files onto the internet so that people can start searching them. And since there's a volume of them, make people believe that they've released something. They've released nothing. So what you start with is 302s. Those are FBI statements of witnesses, victims, where they have named who are the abusers, who are the co-conspirators, what did Jeffrey Epstein do, and when did he do it. Then look at the 2006-2007 investigation that the FBI did. Marie Villafana, a great prosecutor, prepared a 53-page indictment in 2007, along with an 82-page Pross memo at the same time. We have never seen it to this day, and the public still doesn't have it. No explanation whatsoever. 2011, they interviewed Virginia Roberts. She gave a detailed 302. We only have the redacted version. It's not even out there yet. 2019, countless 302 statements. They confiscated hard drives from Epstein's homes that have all of his emails. They have his schedules. They tell you who he talked to, why he talked to them, when he talked to them. Nothing, literally no part of the investigation is there yet. The other part of the act was make sure no victims' names are released to the public, because this is all about the victims and we have to protect them. There's countless victims who have been outed, who never wanted to be outed. And what nobody knows is, I saw this coming, wrote a letter to 2 judges, said this is going to happen. The judges told the Department of Justice, don't do that. Work with Brad Edwards and make sure this doesn't happen. We then provided the Department of Justice with a full list of all of the victims' names, said redact all of them before anything goes on the internet. Didn't happen. So they've released no files, no investigative files to comply with the act, and they've released all kinds of victims' names. The only thing they could really do now is take it all down, what they put out there is trash, and start doing what they're supposed to do.
Bradley Edwards, when you saw this and read this, in your judgment as a lawyer, did this feel like just incompetence, or how they exposed these survivors, or did it feel like something else?
It's funny that you say that, because one of the survivors wrote to me and says, look, you're always standing up for the administration and giving them the benefit of the doubt. Are you going to say once again this is just simple incompetence, or do you agree that's intentional malfeasance? That was literally what I got today. Look, the one document that I had never seen before is one that Maria Farmer claims she made a complaint back in 1996, and we've all believed her and have tried to get it for 30 years, and we didn't get it. But that document did show up. It wasn't investigated. It was under Clinton. So I'm guessing that's the reason that we got that one document. Outside of that, there's been absolutely nothing about any of the investigations that have happened related to Jeffrey Epstein. I have met with lawyers that work for DOJ and SDNY. They're not incompetent. So I guess that just leaves no other possibility. I mean, we have to start thinking. If you're not doing your job, you're not following the law, you're not incompetent, this has to be intentional. It's an affront to the victims. It needs to stop now, like tonight.
We need to squeeze in a commercial break here. When we come back, I just want to ask, do you believe that this release of information and personal information about victims and survivors is being done deliberately to try to intimidate them and to try to silence them? We'll be right back with Congressman Ro Khanna and Attorney Brad Edwards. Congressman Ro Khanna and Attorney Bradley Edwards are back with us. And Bradley Edwards, with the clients who you represent, victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, many of them now being named for the first time, exposed for the first time because of the way the Trump Justice Department has decided to release what they've released. Is it a deliberate choice by Todd Blanche and the Attorney General and the people working for them, possibly guided by Donald Trump, to release this personal information and release these names so that all of these survivors will be intimidated in any attempt to go forward to get more from this Justice Department?
I don't know the direct answer to that, but it would be interesting to see when this law was passed, who emailed or texted who, what directives, so you would know exactly what was being done. It feels to me like an administration, a law was passed against the wishes of a certain of the administration, and that the victims are being caught in a political tug of war in an issue that should not be a political issue. We've said this from the beginning. It's about sex trafficking. Protect the victims, release the files otherwise. It's so simple. The fact that this administration is not just doing it, I think should be troubling to all American people, irrespective of your political party.
Ro Khanna, you gave them several weeks in your law. You gave them several weeks' time to prepare this release. And you would think that if they were going to release it at the very last minute, as they did on the last day, on the deadline, that tiny amount that they released, that they would have done the homework to make the release, at least what they did release, perfect.
Well, they have no regard for the humanity of these survivors. You know, I was shocked by Sarah Fitzpatrick's reporting at The Atlantic that Pam Bondi was supposed to meet with the survivors on the day before the release, and she canceled the meeting. She didn't even meet with them. She hasn't talked to Bradley Edwards. And the reality is they just view these survivors as disposable. These were girls who were from the working class. Sometimes they didn't have a father. They were preyed on by wealthy men. And what the Department of Justice seems concerned about is protecting these rich and wealthy men. They're not releasing the statements of the survivors, the FBI interviews, which show who other rich and wealthy men actually were on the rape island, who abused them. And they're drowning us with legalese. It's not that complicated. We have the survivor statements to the FBI. If they just release them, they protect the victim's identity, and they release them, the American public will know who are the other people involved. And the one document that does say there are 10 other co-conspirators should put to rest this idea that there were not other rich and powerful men involved. We know there were. Just get those names out.
We are perhaps 3 years away from there being a Democratic administration with an Attorney General and a Justice Department that would release everything that these people have not released. Their only option to prevent that will be the destruction of documents for which they would need a Donald Trump pardon after the fact. Bradley Edwards, might we have to wait 3 years to get a real Justice Department working to get this information?
I would hope not. I will say that we are working with a few good-intentioned lawyers at the prosecutors at the Southern District of New York that have started pulling some of the mistakes off for us. So I do think there are good people there that hopefully eventually follow this law. I mean, it's such a simple one to follow. I can't imagine it can be delayed for too long and the victims don't get harmed much more in this process. I really hope we don't have to wait 3 more years. That would be absurd given how simple this process should be.
Congressman Khanna, might it come to that? Might it just have to wait for another president and another attorney general to dig into what this corrupt administration has done?
I certainly hope not, because these survivors have already been waiting decades. And I spoke to Bradley Edwards and some of the survivors today. I mean, some of them are prepared to come back to the Capitol and relive the trauma a third time, which will continue to up the pressure. But the one thing I do think a future Democratic administration will do, in addition to releasing whatever wasn't released, is prosecuting people who have violated the law. And people should understand that this is not something that they just comply with Donald Trump's whims or Pam Bondi's whims. They are obstructing justice. If they are releasing names carelessly, that's an obstruction of justice with what the law is. If they are redacting things excessively, they are obstructing justice. If they are hiding documents to protect rich and powerful people, they are obstructing justice. And I certainly believe the next Democratic president should prosecute that.
Congressman Ro Khanna, Attorney Bradley Edwards, thank you both very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lawrence.
Thank you. And coming up, Chikondi means love. That's next. Kevin Hart is the most famous actor in the world, or at least he's the most famous actor in one high school class in Malawi, where I asked the students who their favorite American actor or actress is last month. There was a long silence. Not a single name was offered until a 16-year-old girl named Chikandi Banda said the name Kevin Hart in a voice so soft that I could barely hear her at first. Oh, Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart, yes, he's great. He's very funny. He's very funny.
That's why I love you.
Yeah, he's very funny. Sorry, everyone else in Hollywood, they've never heard of you. There are a lot of reasons for that, including the fact that there is no electricity in their village, so none of them have screens of any kind. Most of the kids have no possessions at all. Chikandi's greatest treasure are her shoes. The only shoes she has ever owned. And she has those shoes thanks to your generosity to the Kind Fund, the partnership I created with UNICEF that provides scholarships for girls to attend high school in Malawi and provides desks for elementary schools in Malawi that have never had desks. Chikandi receives one of our scholarships, which include her school uniform and her first pair of shoes. I walked home from school with Chikandi that day. She lives with her older brother and her grandmother in the two-bedroom house where her grandmother was born. Chikandi shares a bedroom with her grandmother. So what is your favorite room in your house?
I like this room very, very much because I sleep here.
Your bedroom is your favorite room.
Yeah, because it's where I rest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I lay my head.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I like it.
When kids in these houses point to where they sleep, they aren't pointing at beds. They are pointing at the floor. And if they are lucky, they are pointing at a pillow on the floor. This room.
Oh, this is where my brother sleep. Yeah.
Your brother sleeps there?
Yeah, at night he sleep here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that might be your bedroom someday? Do you want to have your own bedroom?
Not like this one.
A different one.
Yeah.
Okay. But you would like to have your own bedroom someday?
So much.
You so much.
Yeah.
Isn't it fun to sleep with your grandmother in that room?
Sometimes I want to sleep alone.
Sometimes you want to be alone. Well, you might want to be alone some more as you get older. You're going to have your own bedroom someday. I know that.
Yeah. Maybe.
And it's going to be a nice one.
Maybe.
You have to be careful when you try to encourage kids in Malawi about what might be in their future. Chikandi knows that her grandmother has never had her own bedroom in that house where the cement walls have big cracks and the roof leaks in rainy season. And so when I suggested Chikandi might have her own bedroom someday, she could only go so far as saying, maybe. Maybe. The only light in these little houses comes from the windows that have no glass and no screens. Chikandi's brother told us that whenever they have a candle, Chikandi can study a little bit later.
Okay, some other times, because we don't have electricity, so we can just buy a candle. We can light up a candle. So whenever she wants to study, she can use the candle. Whenever it lights off, that's the end of studying. Yeah, so it's a little bit so hard to read.
She said that you help her with her homework sometimes.
Yeah.
What does she need the most help?
I think it's mathematics.
Mathematics.
Yeah, but other things.
I needed the most help in mathematics too. Mathematics is the hardest.
Yeah. So that's what I do help her a lot. Yeah, but other subjects, she's good at them.
You can help by going to lastworddesks.ms.now. You can make a contribution in any amount to anyone on your holiday gift list, and UNICEF will send them an acknowledgement of your gift. You can specify that your gift is for desks or for girls' scholarships. Chikandi's grandmother had some advice for her.
Chikondi, sukulu ndiyabwino upitirize sukulu osasintha zochita waona anthu abwera apa kuti ndiyani akulipira school fees sindikulipa fees ndineyo yayi koma awanda ami akulipira school fees yofika sukulu usachite nawe chibwana ayi chifukwa ukaphunzira bwino ndiye ndineyo uzandilera mmene ndili panopa ndilibe chilichonse.
What she's saying is she's advising Chikondi that she should not be too prideful with school, and she has to use this opportunity so that whenever she gets successfully in this life, she will also help her grandmother to live in a happy life. So that's what she was advising, so that she must concentrate a lot, on her studies.
Chikandi Banda is a very good student with very big dreams. She would like to fly in an airplane someday, and she'd like to visit America someday. And maybe, if she's very lucky, she'll get her own bedroom someday. Chikandi told us what her name means in English.
In English, use love.
In English, it's love, she said. Chikandi means love. 16-year-old Chikandi Banda gets tonight's last word, and that word is love.